My turtle is dead. He was alive this morning. Now don't get so upset, little bear. Don't cry. It's only a turtle. But I want my turtle. Stop that, little bear. I'll buy you another turtle. But I don't want another turtle. I want this one. Now, little bear, you're being unreasonable. My turtle is dead. He was alive this morning. Oh no, what a shock. He was my friend. Losing a friend can hurt. I taught him to do tricks. You two had such fun together, little bear. I fed him every day. You really cared about that turtle.
Have you ever heard of someone who is called a good listener? A good listener has a piece of the magic of being a healing presence. Think about someone that you know who's a good listener. What are some of their qualities? The person really pays attention. I feel like they're sincerely interested in what I have to say. You feel listened to. You feel like the person cares enough to want to really listen. I feel like the person really wants to understand what I'm saying. They care about knowing what I'm feeling. You feel like you're being understood. Your feelings are important. I can say anything. The person accepts whatever I have to say. You're accepted. It's safe to say anything. You're not being judged. I can really relax with what I'm saying. The person doesn't pressure me with a lot of questions. You're relaxed. You don't have to be on guard or have to explain yourself. I'm totally comfortable with the person. They care about me, but nothing I say upsets them. You can be as you are. You feel loved and safe. You don't have to worry about how they'll react to what you have to say. There's something very magical and healing about being a good listener. And it's something that we want to learn how to do. Or maybe we should say, learn how to be. Being a good listener. It's not so much what we do, it's how we are with a person. Of course, we're going to learn this process by learning to do a particular exercise. I might call it a meditation and reflection. We're going to learn how to be a healing presence through listening by learning how to pay attention to a person as they're talking and let them know actively that we are trying to understand them, that we are trying to listen to them by giving back to them what we think it is we're hearing them say. They call this process reflective listening. Let's tune in to an Atlantic University class right now where you'll see a student demonstrating the method. She's just learning how to do it, and it's very interesting to watch. So let's go to class now and watch a demonstration of reflective listening. So we're just going to do a process where basically Veronica comes up to me and says, well, how's it going? And at the moment she asks that, I don't know how it's going. We'll find out how it's going. I'm going to engage in a process of spontaneous disclosure and talking, and we'll see how it goes. And how it goes is going to be partly a function of what she reflects, because what she reflects is the part of me that will be able to live, that will be able to be. Okay, so we'll start now.
How are you today, Henry?
Well, right now I'm feeling really up and excited and full of energy.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel that. So what has created that excitement for you?
In reflective listening, we don't need to ask the person questions to keep them talking. We just reflect back. So when I said, I'm feeling really up and full of excitement, what might have been a reflective thing to have said? Somebody? What could you have said? You're feeling full of life? Yeah, I just feel it bubbling all over me.
I don't know how to give you it's hard. I keep wanting to react to your excitement. Yes. You're exuberant.
Yes, I do. I'm feeling very, very happy right now, and it's a welcome change from feeling kind of low and disgruntled, and I guess talking and stuff has started me, instead of being withdrawn, being outgoing.
Yes, I see you very happy and you're more outgoing.
Yeah, I feel a lot better, and I guess that being able to put it out, you know, and talk and stuff gets my energy up.
Your energy is up in talking about it.
Yeah, it's somehow like getting active and sharing and not focusing on myself, focusing on people and talking. My energy starts to shift.
So focusing and talking and getting your energy out and relating to people allow you to shift your energy.
Yeah, somehow making the connection with you and talking, I feel better than being when I'm just focused on myself and worrying about this or thinking about that and so on, and I can get really kind of drawn into myself.
So talking with me and expressing your energy allows you to get outside of yourself and be more expressive.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm more out, I'm not in here, I don't feel aches and pains, I'm not aware of that. I feel more diffuse, more expanded.
You feel more expanded, more out. You're not restricted inwards. You are feeling less pain. You're expanded.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a really good feeling. It's a relief to not be in that painful place, and it's exciting. I mean, I can think I'm happier, and I can think of different things, and more thoughts are coming, and there's more optimism and hope and stuff like that. It's feeling the best all day.
It's really less painful. It's a good feeling to feel, to get it all out, to be expanded, to feel excited and aware and really excited and wonderful all day.
Yeah, and to get it out, I think, seems to be really key, because you keep so much of that stuff in. A lot of things that you're feeling down, I really wouldn't want to tell anybody, because I wouldn't want to bum them out or take them down or what have you, so then I keep it all in, and somehow just being able to talk, get stuff out, it's like getting a load off and the energy is flowing once again.
Just being able to talk, to get it out of yourself, to be able to just let go and talk with someone rather than keep it inside, allows you to feel free to get a load off, to just feel
for
happy.
sure, yeah, just letting it go, getting that load off is so much lighter, and you can feel it felt so stagnant and growing in itself, and now it's like there's a wind flowing through me, a breeze, and I can feel, like I'm open to being with people, and it's a much different kind of feeling.
Getting it off and just feeling free, it's like a wind that I'm just able to be free and to let go and to really be with people.
Okay.
So let's put this on pause here for a moment. How was that?
Now that was a good example of the first level of learning this skill. Veronica's learning how to pay attention to what I'm saying and reflect it back to me or mirror to me, repeating back not just the words but the sense, the meaning of what I was saying, perhaps including the feelings of what I was saying. Now that was the process. Let's find out how Veronica experienced it, what it was like for her to do this.
What did that feel like for you as you were then doing it?
I feel like I wasn't really into me, I was really into where you were.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And what was that like as opposed to saying, I can see that, yeah, you are looking really good or what have you, that shift.
Yes.
What's that like?
The shift was, it wasn't me interpreting what I think you were feeling. But when I shifted to just mirroring you, it was more feeling your energy.
So instead of like being kind of like Veronica's spin or take on Henry or evaluation, you were more just saying, Henry, I'm going to let you be, and just kept giving me back to me.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It was kind of like holding a dish, taking it in, and then pouring it back out.
Now you might wonder, well, what's the point of that? Just repeating the person's words back. It's like an echo. They can just hear themselves again. But there's a little bit more to it than that. Listen now as Veronica describes what it was like for her to be engaged in this meditation on listening.
It was kind of like holding a dish, taking it in, and then pouring it back out.
Did there seem to be any point to that?
Yeah.
What was the point to
The
it?
point was more or less really listening. I really had to listen. And this also was a feeling of empathy, of seeing where you were, and being with your experience, not mine.
Well, what was that like that if you're with my experience and not mine, that you kind of left out of it? Do you feel sad or lonely or?
No, connected.
You feel connected.
Right, connected. I wasn't even thinking of me anymore.
You weren't thinking of me anymore, huh?
Well, what about for the person speaking? Are they just hearing their words being repeated, or is something else happening? Notice my reaction to Veronica's listening to me.
What's happening? How's it going? Whatever. Just a simple statement to let the other person start. They don't have to know how they are. They don't have to figure out and report. It's a process of discovery. I discovered that I was feeling good, and I discovered that part of why I was feeling good was I wasn't holding back anymore. And that letting go and flowing was expanding me and freeing me and cleaning me. That was all a discovery process that was going on because she was providing a space for me to be in. Okay?
So something actually does happen during this listening process. The listener, by reflecting back to the person who's speaking, actually creates some kind of a special healing quality. A healing effect is going on. Here in a lecture, I describe what I believe to be going on during the listening process. Let's look at this for a moment.
Now, the purpose of this is that as I speak and Veronica mirrors me or reflects me in her words, she does two things. One, she allows me to be heard. I feel myself existing. I feel my words, my thoughts, my feelings existing in Veronica's awareness. And as she does that, and I feel myself existing in her awareness, it encourages myself to come out. The goal is for her to provide a space where I can be. The listener provides a space for the speaker to be in, and the speaker comes out. At the same time, as she's doing this, Veronica, as the listener, has the opportunity to experience what it's like for me. As she listens to me, and feeds back what I'm saying to me, reflects it back, she starts taking on
the feeling, the attributes as she's walking in my shoes and starts having that experience of sharing. This is not about Veronica. This is not about the listener. It's really about the speaker. Now, to keep the energy with the speaker, that's really a key point. In fact, in some way, it's not so much the matter of saying the words back correctly or doing it just right, but keeping the speaker's energy flowing. Think of them as like a flower that's opening up, and as they begin to speak, their energy starts to come out. And by your reflecting back to them, you're encouraging that energy to come on, a little bit more, a little bit more. I'm with you, a little bit more, a little bit more, and so on. You're keeping their energy flowing. Another way to say this is that it's not about you, it's about them. So you want to have your focus on them, and you want to keep their focus on them. You're there to help them bring their energy out. Now remember, for example, in the case of the little bear who had lost its turtle, it wasn't always clear what the conversation was about. Was it about the little bear and the loss of the turtle, or was it about the big bears being upset about little bear's reaction? Let's go and watch as I and Veronica play out that scene again. The little cartoon that I gave you is a good, very quick summary of what the difference is between reacting and listening, even when reacting has a good intention. Let's just, for fun of it, Veronica, okay. We're going to just go through and read out loud the two scenarios so we can get a feeling for the difference between reacting and listening. So we'll start with it when I say, "My turtle is dead. He was alive this morning."
Now don't get so upset, honey. Don't cry, it's only a turtle.
Oh, I want my turtle.
What's that? Stop that! Buy you another turtle. I'll buy you another turtle.
I don't want another one.
No, you're being unreasonable.
So there's a scene from typical human communication. We react to what the other person has to say. It's with the goodest intention. He's trying to soothe her. But you can see also that what he's trying to do is soothe himself. That he unconsciously experiences her pain, and he's trying to make his pain go away. Now in the other scene, you'll see, when he's practicing listening, he's willing to be with her in her feelings, and the conversation goes much differently. "My turtle is dead. He was alive this morning."
Oh no, what a shock.
"He was my friend.
To lose a friend can hurt.
I taught him to do tricks.
You two had fun together.
I fed him every day."
You really cared about that turtle.
So you see, there in that scene, the person, Dad, is simply reflecting, not stating in exact words that she used, but it's more of the attitude. And when we do the active, reflective listening, it's with an attitude of, "I hear you. What I think I hear you saying is blah, blah, blah." Did you notice how in the two scripts, when Daddy Bear was not being a good listener, it was almost as if he was reacting to Little Bear's being upset. Daddy Bear's own upsetness or worry or anxiety about Little Bear's upsetness seemed to be driving how Daddy Bear responded. Now you're always going to face that challenge to not let your own reaction be what's driving you, but instead to keep focused on the other person's energy and encourage them to keep flowing with their energy. Keep flowing with their opening up, with their saying, with their exploration, with their discovery process. Now, let's watch someone else do this. You'll see another Atlantic University student listening to me as I'm talking about a class that I've just been given. I'm very excited, I'm very energetic, and I'm a little bit concerned about how the students have been responding to me.
Now this student, by listening to me carefully and tracking me and following me as I'm speaking, this student actually helps me to get a better understanding on what's going on with me and a different perspective on how I'm feeling. So let's watch this now. So we'll just start this off, and you can, I'm going to be the one that's, emoting, you might say, confiding, and you be the listener. And I think a very simple, well, tell me what's happening kind of a beginning is fine, and then I'll start.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, good afternoon, Henry. And how are you today?
I'm fine.
And what's going on with you today?
Well, I'm experiencing a lot of feelings and emotions, and trying to pull this class off, and feeling that there's a lot to do, and aware of the people and aware of the tasks, and excited and scared, and lots of stuff.
So you're feeling a gamut of emotions, some of them contradictory. You're excited, and at the same time you're a little maybe nervous or apprehensive about how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know where things are exactly. I'm enjoying, I get really excited about the stuff. This is really good stuff. And then on the other hand, are the people understanding it, or is it too much? I'm trying reality test, and stuff like that. So I'm unsure a little bit of my ground.
I see. So you're feeling maybe, sounds like you're maybe a little afraid because your enthusiasm you get carried away with, and maybe you're a little frightened about how other people are going to respond to all of the things that you're trying to get across.
Yeah, I think that is a little scared about, somehow if I overdo it or what have you, get carried away, I lose track of what's reasonable, or what can you expect, what can you ask, and yet it's somehow good. And so wanting to find that balance and not know exactly how to go about reality testing.
I see. Well, it sounds like you're so enthusiastic, and there's so many good things that you want to happen with this class, and yet on the other hand you're holding yourself back for fear that maybe the other students might not be able to absorb all of that, or maybe your enthusiasm won't be as catching.
Yeah, and I don't know how to test it. At lunchtime, I ran into an old student at the gym, and he says, don't protect him, you give them all you can during the weekend, they'll have a whole month to sort it out. Now, he's been there, and that was comforting. Like, he was giving me a little bit of a feedback, because you watch people's faces, and they're like, maybe they're in shock or what, you don't know what you're reading there, and everyone wants to have a sure thing rather than a risk. So they'll act a little bit shy, and then you want to pull back. But no, they don't really want to have the stuff not given to them. So there's ambivalence in the air.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was fortunate for you that you ran into an old student, don't you? That seem to make you feel more comfortable, that you ran into this student and you got that kind of feedback.
Yes.
So it reduced your apprehension.
Yeah, because it was a little bit of clarity, because he had been through the whole process. He had been at the point of feeling the overload and been on the other side when he came out of it. Mm-hmm. So he had some experience and spoke. He could speak to both feelings. Yes, I know what it's like to be overloaded, but also remember, we got to process it, and it worked out okay.
So it sounds like you got a little clarity from this former student.
Yeah, I came back from lunch feeling a little bit more confident than I left at lunchtime, feeling kind of nervous or guilty, like, oh gosh, am I asking too much? Am I expecting too much?
Well, it sounds like you've got a handle on it now.
I have a handle on it?
You're feeling a lot better about
I'm not
how
sure
it's
that
going.
I have a handle, but I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better, yes. It's like, it feels like it's riding this wild animal, And you want to ride this animal because it's a thrill, like you've ever been surfing. But at the same time, you don't want anybody to get hurt.
I see. So
there's more than just me involved.
So you're feeling not only your own feelings, but you're very concerned. You're telling me you're very concerned about the reactions of the students and their feelings and how they're going to process this.
Yes, because I feel, that my assumption is people have to feel a certain amount of confidence in order to undertake something. So I want to have enough time for enough confidence that they'll try, but it seems like we're so pressed, for time, so then I get worried.
So you worry about the time constraint, you think, more than the actual work you're going to put out?
It feels like I don't have the time, like to make the connection with everybody, say, hi, you doing, and we sort of get into your speed and your dance, and then we sort of move on from there. It's sort of
I see.
And oh, by the way, hi, it's nice to have you here.
Well, so you're feeling you're giving them a lot of work, but not enough individual attention.
And to process where they're at with it, so we can digest it. I feel like I'm missing everybody.
So you're feeling like you need to maybe give
more
them
time.
a little more individual time.
Or is that sense of contact? Yeah, if we could sit around, like they would love to sit around for 3 hours talking about the stuff, but before only get about 10 minutes of that. I say, I'm sorry, that's enough discussion. We got to move on. I'd love to hear what they were feeling. So, and I notice that when I don't know, then I start wondering and thinking and supposing and imagining and worrying, because I don't know.
So you've got all these things going on in your mind and you're thinking about all the different possibilities of how the students are going to react to all these various things. You've really got a lot going on about this class in your mind. A lot of different aspects are coming into play here. So it sounds
it is
like
a lot of different dimensions. Yeah, they're thinking about trying to balance. And I realize I can't do that, I can't, I realize my mind says, Henry, you just can't do that. You've got to just plan it, do your best work, lay it out there, and let people take care of themselves. But there's this part of me, and I don't know if it's a healthy part or an unhealthy part or what. This, well, I wonder how she's thinking about this. I wonder how he's feeling, and
so you've got a little conflict going between your head and your heart.
Well, I'd say it's a conflict between, on the one hand, focusing on here's the stuff I want to share, and at the same time wondering how are you processing this? How are you processing, and wanting to stop and say, you tell me how you're processing it. Okay, how are you? Okay, how are you? Okay, but not feeling there's enough time to that to satisfy my sense of being connected to how everybody is feeling about it. Because of having to go on to the next thing. And then I feel guilty that I'm not putting people first. Even though the purpose is to, is of coming here and doing this is to share something with people so that they can learn.
So there's not only, sure. Makes a lot of sense. So there's not only a conflict going on up here and here, but it sounds to me like there's a couple of conflicts going on in here. It sounds like you want to give something that you're not really confident you can give. Yeah,
wow, yeah. I want to give them something, and I still feel very new at this. And I can look back at previous ones. Yeah, they did good. Yeah, they told me it was good, but I'm still not sure. It takes lots of repetitions for me, where I can say, yeah, I can do this. So yeah, I'm not sure that I can give it. I'm not sure that I am giving it. I'm trying really hard to give it.
And I'm
Are you getting it? I'm wondering.
Not to give it.
Yeah, okay, so let's just stop here for a second.
Yes.
And I thought you did very well. You took me to a place of clarity where I am, as you heard, processing all kinds of levels. Mm-hmm. And sort of aware that I'm processing at all kinds of levels. But when we sat down, we had a chance for me to really be aware that I was processing on many levels. And as we talked about that some, I got to understand that what was happening was I was unsure if I could give what I really wanted to give, that I really wanted to give something. I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person who wants to give something. But because of feeling unsure, wanting to get a lot of confirmation back or feedback so I could adjust my giving so I could make sure that I was giving it.
Mm-hmm.
And you make me feel a lot better about what I'm going through.
I did?
Yes. Because it's
Great.
it's clearer to me what's happening. It's a thing of me caring and being confused and trying to do what's right or what's good, what's effective. In a difficult situation. It's not that anyone else could walk right in here, and do a better job. And that it's coming out of caring and trying and doing my best. And you gave me that understanding.
Well, that's what I heard. You gave me that.
Yeah. So they're
Just
very
gave
simple. Yeah, there is the reflective listening. You're just being with me. We never focused on you, hardly at all. I could be aware maybe slightly of the teacher part that that you're striving, but just the Henry part was really, with your help, really focused on my feelings. And whether you got it right or not, like a couple times you said scared or frightened. And I thought of Matt saying, that's too strong of a word.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was in that direction. It was in the fear direction, and it wasn't in the yummy direction, the feeling that was.
Well, I thought at one point that you said that you were afraid that we weren't, you used the word.
Right, sure.
I think, but maybe not. It's very hard, I must say, from my point of view. It was very, very difficult to stay totally focused on what you were saying so that I could reflect it back to you and to listen, to try to really hear what you were saying so that it would be accurately reflected back on the one hand. And on the other hand, there were times when it was very, very difficult because I'm a part of the situation you're talking about.
Of course, good. That's what's making this so good, because often we're in that spot.
Right, and so it was very, very difficult for me not to say, but you are doing a good job, or you are doing a good job, or you should try this, not to give any
Exactly. That's good, that's good. I'm glad you're saying this, because that's very real. We have things we want to say.
Right, and then I found, I had to quickly pull myself out of that because I would lose focus on what you were saying the minute those thoughts came into my mind. So and I think the times that I goofed on reflecting back was when I had just a moment of distraction can really. It really would.
Right,
exactly. Really threw me off.
So a lot of concentration is involved.
What did you just say?
A lot of concentration involved.
So that was my experience in this exercise.
Right. It takes a lot of concentration like that. And whether you were directly involved or say the part that you are a regular counselor and I was the client, maybe your motherly feelings toward me and wanting to lift me up because you saw me feeling bad. You're wanting to give me a piece of reality, because here I was saying I don't have any reality, so you could offer some.
Right, well, there were 1,000 things that went through my mind very quickly, but, like, what was he saying? It's very clear to me.
Right.
Or whatever,
Because as you see, I was being very real with you. I was being very real with you, and one of the things that was coming out was, and I had never put it together like this, was reality testing. For me, trying to reality test in a situation where I would be prone to be a worrier, you see? And this is something that internally I have to learn how to deal with. Your giving me some reality, per se, would be rescuing me from a situation that I need to learn from.
Right, and this particular self-reflective listening or reflective listening is difficult because most people in the counseling profession are there because they want to help. And when you hear someone going on and on about something that you think you have a pretty good solution or even suggestions, it's very hard to pull back on that and let the person do their own processing.
Right,
Let
right.
them find their own answers and their
Right.
own truth.
Mm-hmm.
Let them hear themselves and become aware of what's going on.
Exactly, exactly. And then you helped me. I mean, we watched it right here in
Well,
front of it. And
yeah.
it was a struggle. And it wasn't, the struggle didn't come so much from you having lack of reflective listening skills. The struggle came from all the other things you wanted to tell me. All the little help you wanted to give me, and the stroking and the hugging, and you're going to be okay, Henry, kind of stuff you wanted to give
Yes,
me.
but I didn't.
But you didn't. And that was great. That was great. That was wonderful.
Am I off the hot seat now?
Yeah, okay. You are warm.
I'm always warm.
Okay, all right. No,
Always
good. Did you notice how Vanell said that she always wanted to say something back to me, that she had to keep her mouth shut, in a sense, about the things she'd really like to tell me, because she had reactions to what I was saying. She was one of those students in that class. She had a different reaction to me, or a different response or perception of me than I had of myself. And she wanted to blurt it out. But Henry, it's not like that. It's not like that. But she had to keep that to herself in order to just follow me and be a good listener for me. And it was really worth the effort, as you saw what happened. With a good listener, I can feel free to talk out my feelings. They don't try to get me to change or to see things they want me to see. It's easy to keep your focus on your own feelings. The person doesn't introduce a lot of their own ideas for you to think about. I can take the time I need to work through my feelings and understand them. I don't feel I'm put on the spot to try to fix things right away. It's safe for you to explore your feelings without having to deal with a lot of suggestions. A good listener is felt, but not noticed. I don't think about their ideas. They help me think about my own feelings and my own ideas. You really appreciate the caring you receive from a good listener, and how they let you stay focused on understanding your own feelings. It's really amazing to see how the speaker can work out their own problems if they're just given a chance to do so. And that's what happened with me while Vanell was being a good listener. Now let's watch another sample of this. Here we have 3 other students in a class. One is listening to the other, and in the meanwhile, in the background, Matt is sitting there like the observer. Matt represents the awareness, the background awareness that's monitoring the process to help ring an alarm in case we stray off the path of listening and start giving advice or doing something like that. So let's watch this particular demonstration.
Good afternoon, Suzanne.
Hi.
What's happening with you today?
Let's see, what have I been thinking about? It's mostly my decision to move soon, I guess, is really on my mind a lot. I am supposed to be moving here to Virginia Beach in the wintertime, and I'm kind of having just these different thoughts about it. I'm not really sure if that's what I want to do, and I'm feeling pressures from different sides to, make this move or whatever, things like that.
So I hear you have some ambivalence about this move.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. And I guess also a little bit of almost guilt for having these ambivalent feelings, because I've told certain people that I'll be, moving in here and it'll be great, it'll be wonderful, and then I'm sort of not exactly feeling that completely 100% with me. So this is definitely like conflicting feelings, but also just kind of feeling bad about having those conflicting feelings at the same time.
Okay. So you're feeling like you're not sure you want to move, or you've said some things that maybe you're not going to be able to follow through on, and that's making you feel guilty?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Maybe I'm not being true to my word about how I'm kind of standing with these people in my decision to move. I'm kind of maybe saying one thing and not exactly sure of it in my head that I'm actually going to be doing that. So I feel maybe like I'm leading my friend astray, sort of, just because it's not an outright lie, because I'm just not sure about it exactly.
So you're still unsure about whether you want to make the move?
Yeah, all right, might as well just get into it. It's basically, I would be moving in with my boyfriend and his mother, and that's just kind of, and that's difficult there too, because she's a wonderful person and all this, so I just don't know if I'd feel comfortable in that situation, or feel like it was my home, or if it would just be sort of a, you know, I'd be treading lightly there, it just wouldn't feel natural to me, so. There's that kind of whole issue of just being with his mother and just him, and this is his hometown, and I've never been here before, and things like that, so it's also there.
Okay. So I'm hearing it's where you're actually moving that is, and the people that are involved in it that's creating some of the uncertainty here.
Yeah, that's most of it is true. I'm also just concerned about the area in general. It's just, it's new. It's not exactly what I expected as I don't know, just a change, you know, graduating college and just going to go here, go out west, and somehow I'm ending up in Virginia Beach. Not that it's bad, but it's just not quite what I had envisioned for myself, so I'm not sure if I'm kind of doing this for him or if it's something I should do, you know, in a relationship, or if it's what I want to do, and so there's all that going on.
Okay. So you're having some conflict really about this decision to move in with him, and a change about what your plans were that perhaps you had a few months ago?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I'm living with him now, and I feel like he'd rather be here just for job opportunities, things like that, and so I feel like he's been kind of doing these things for me or for the relationship or whatever, and I feel like I should reciprocate, but I don't know if I'm being selfish or if that's just, basically that's just all confusing to me right now.
Okay. So you're having lots of confusion about this decision?
Yeah, that's true. I guess it's just, yeah, I guess it also kind of stems from just a lot of different things about going back to school, and I kind of put that on hold a little bit, just, you know, until next year as opposed to this semester. And I guess I feel like maybe being in Virginia Beach would be a little bit more stagnating than I had anticipated doing.
So it sounds like the plans that you made for yourself have changed, and you feel like in some way they're stagnating or slowing you down or keeping you from progressing.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm wondering maybe if this is what I need to be doing, because I felt myself kind of holding off on doing applications and things like that, and coming up with reasons why I should wait, and I don't know if that's because, you know, I feel like maybe I should be just going with those feelings anyways, and I'm just not ready for it now, and so I just kind of think I either would have been in grad school already, but now I'm going to be just kind of doing the same old thing I'm doing now, but just in a different place, and a place that doesn't really thrill me to death, but maybe I'm just not giving it a chance yet either. So I don't know. I feel like I'm going in circles.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a very confusing situation. I have a lot of different feelings with it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried writing down your feelings just to see the pros and cons of things? I kept my mouth shut as long as I could. That was.
I kind of like that because I feel like I needed something to kind of just jolt me out of. I don't know where to go with it. I just keep like I'm saying the same thing over and over. You know, almost it's like, which I guess maybe it's not good either. But I was waiting for you to maybe even give me an opening to go with or something.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get back to the the regular session.
So you're feeling bad about everything, it seems like, associated with this move, the decision to not go to grad school, to move in with him and to continue doing what you're doing compared to perhaps where you saw yourself a year ago looking forward.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's just a matter of deciding. It's just difficult to know what I want to do to go back to school for. So I finally just graduated from regular, you know, college and undergrad degree, and that's kind of like, you know, that's done, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do, you know, so I need to go back to school, because Lord knows I don't want to be a waitress forever, and I guess I'm just trying to figure out what I really actually want to go back to school for, And I feel like, I guess there's opportunities here for me to find that out. I don't know, maybe it's me putting this whole, like, Virginia Beach is practical. There's a lot to, there's businesses here and there's places, I get jobs at and there's a lot going on in one respect. And be economical, I wouldn't be paying for rent and living in this mall would be very, like, probably like a good thing to do. Then there's the other side, it's kind of like, I don't want to do that, I just want to go somewhere else and take off. So I guess there's also just sort of like, I guess what I consider would be best for me or what I just really want to do.
Mm-hmm. What I think I'm hearing is that you have a conflict about doing what you should do and then actually doing what you want to do.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's kind of true. I mean, that's kind of always the way it always has been for me, sort of. If I'm going to go do what, I should do, or what my parents think I should do, or if I'm just going to go do whatever. I always kind of end up doing whatever, so I'm kind of, I guess that's maybe what my conflict is I kind of in the back of my mind know that I could end up doing something totally different and just kind of, excuse my language, but kind of screwing up that whole situation I've kind of been setting up. And I guess I'm just kind of wondering if that will happen or not, because I just don't know.
So you're wondering if you do what you want to do, if that would then screw up the relationship, which you think is what you should do? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's just, it's hard for me to kind of decipher because I just don't really know if I'm going to kind of just, I have no idea. And in one respect, I'm still planning kind of all this, and it's all plans are being made and all this stuff, and I'm kind of like, ooh boy, if it doesn't go according to plan, that could not be good. But, so yeah, there's that guilt, but at the same time, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm at a loss.
Yeah, it really sounds like you are at a loss.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like this has been going and around for a while.
Yeah. And it's just lately it's been getting more sort of definite. I sort of, at one point, it was this kind of back and forth, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to go to Virginia Beach. Summer, I'm there, And so I think because I actually made that sort of decision, I'm kind of like, what I do? I'm kind of just thinking about it and wondering if I should have been that specific about it when I really don't know if that's what I want to do. So I guess, I don't know, I still like I should be more honest with this person I'm going to be moving in with than I have been.
So you have the sense that you should be sharing this with that person.
Yeah. Sounds about right. But it's I feel so bad because the person gets so excited and want to like bust his little bubble.
So I hear you don't want to hurt this person, but yet you feel like you have to share some of this for yourself.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like sort of a false enthusiasm, if that makes any sense. But not totally, just partly. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just sort of gonna play it by ear anyways and see just how I feel about it all at the time. It was still a month or so away. It's not like I can pretty much go or not go. I don't know. Sounds about right.
So you're just going to play it by ear, and just could you tell me about playing by ear?
I guess I just mean that I'm not going to worry over it too much. I'm just going to kind of see how things go down at the beach and just kind of, I guess my opportunities are definitely limited there, considering it's a resort town and winter's coming. It's not the best place to be money-wise. And then I guess to see if, kind of look at my other options more realistically and see if anything else would pan out that would be more exciting or appropriate for me to do. And if not, I kind of consider Virginia Beach to be a place to fall back on.
So you're thinking about, you say you're going to be looking at some more options?
Yeah. Now I am. Sounds good.
I thought I heard you say that you're going to be.
No, exactly. I'm just kind of hearing myself talk like, all right, I'll go with that. That sounds good, you know? I mean, which seems to be the best way of going about it, actually, since I'm really not sure one way or another.
So if it also seems like Virginia Beach is there as like a safety net as you're looking at the options.
Yeah, I think so. Although I feel like if I just kind of, I don't know, if I push it too much, the offer could just be reneged totally. I feel like that's it. You know, I'm sick of me going back and forth all the time. So I feel like I'll maybe just kind of look at other options, kind of just, I don't know, try and be more honest with this person, but just kind of figure out what I want to do possibly without necessarily having to bring up every little thing and have, you know, it become a big deal. And if I do decide to do something else, then just tell him as soon as possible. Yes.
So as you're looking at these options, you're also thinking about having to tell him this.
Yeah, definitely being. Yeah, it's just difficult because I don't think he understands the reasons why I don't want to be here. So I guess maybe I could try and communicate more clearly to him my hesitations or what exactly it is that I feel wouldn't be as optimal for me here, I guess.
So you're thinking about trying to talk to him about some of this then, and so that he would understand why it's not good for you.
Right, again, try and talk to him again about it. I definitely have tried to. But yeah, I guess I need to just put it in a way that won't put him on the defensive about it, I guess. So, yeah.
Okay. So Suzanne, tell me, what was it like for you going through this process with Joyce?
It was interesting, and I felt like this was maybe just something that was kind of, I hadn't really thought about much, so I feel like I was kind of just thinking about it for the first time.
I appreciate you're willing to do that.
No, but I felt like maybe it was difficult for you because it wasn't something I was really excited about, that I could just kind of go on and on and, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, but it really made me kind of, you know, stop, and I was really listening to what you were saying because I hadn't thought about it. And so hearing you kind of say what I had been saying, it just made me kind of try and focus more on the issue. So at the same time, I was really trying to, you know, take it in different directions. And it was, I felt like a little bit like I was just grasping at straws. Cause I just
Grasping at straws sitting here, or grasping at straws in your situation in life?
Sort of in my situation. I mean, I also was very aware that this is such a setting, you know, not like just talking to my friend on the phone or something.
Right. I appreciate your willingness to do that.
Oh, but I definitely, and I guess I'm also used to having advice given to me. So
yes,
I think I was looking for that almost a little bit.
Were you feeling a pull from her to give her advice?
I don't know if it was from her or from myself, but she's about the same age as my son.
I see.
And I wanted to, in some way, at least give her options, not say you should do this or this, but just give a list of options or have you thought about. And so I had difficulty restraining myself.
Now, if you have a good listening session, I suppose the person in Suzanne's role could say, well, if you have any advice you've been holding back on me, you could give it now because the session's over. But I think that there's a whole lot to be gained, you know, without the advice. And did you feel that anything happened for you while you were sitting here?
I really did. I really was a little bit more clear on what I perhaps could do besides just being kind of like, oh, whatever, I'm not going to deal with it yet. You know, I was like, well, maybe I could think about what else might materialize or just being more open and whatever. And it was, I was almost forced to have to do that because I felt like there was sort of this like wall there a little bit, you know. I guess just because I'm used to being in situations where it's such a like, oh yeah, I know what you mean exactly, you know, it's just like that sort of thing. So this was kind of good. It kind of forced me to just think on my own about what, where I might
Did
go
you
with
feel that she was, you used the wall and stuff, as if she was somehow less caring about you because she didn't give you advice?
I mean, actually, I felt more. I was so wrapped up in what I was saying that
Uh-huh.
I wasn't even really, I mean, not noticing it, but
Uh-huh.
it was more like I was listening to the words and
Uh-huh.
just thinking so
Right,
wrapped up in
right.
that I wasn't like,
Uh-huh.
you know, feeling really one way or the other.
Right, right, okay. So she didn't draw your attention away from yourself, then, did she? She kept you focused in on you. Mhm. Well, Matt, what did you notice going back and forth? What kind of
Well, I
observations?
thought the dialogue was I thought you did a good job,
Uh-huh.
except for that one time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think you were even aware of
It was a
it.
test.
You
I
were
had been
even aware of
resisting
that.
it. No, I knew what I was doing.
Interestingly, I was picking up. I'm very empathetic,
Uh-huh,
and I
uh-huh.
was picking up a lot of her. I could feel her
Uh-huh.
angst and so on.
Uh-huh. Can you describe some of the angst that you were feeling and stuff?
I felt on a spiritual level that divine spirit was saying, "Trust in me." I felt that you have trusted in so many other people and their advice that maybe the situation was your chance to really find out for yourself what leadings you might get. And that's what I was just sensing on an intuitive level.
Yeah, I was having that same kind of a feeling too of if I were to do it in a reflective listening mode, you're saying, yeah, it's really hard when you don't know sure what you want. It's a lot easier to kind of go with the whatever any people are suggesting, huh? And when you're not really sure what you really want, then you do these other people's things, but you don't really know if that's so good. But then as you start thinking about it and you realize it's not so good, it sort of starts to force you in to think what you really want. And then you start getting a little clearer about what you really want. And then when you're clear about what you really want, it's a lot easier to tell that other person in a very clear and loving way where you stand. And if you could trust that somehow you're taking a chance to trust, aren't you, that if you say where you're at, it'll work out somehow. Because it's really in a bind. We're really caught in a prison when we don't really know what we want, and all these other people around us know what they want, and they're trying to get us to do their thing, and then we get caught up in it, and it's only through the feeling of uncomfortableness that we start coming to our senses. And then we have to face the fact that we don't know what we want. And then, what is it we do want? And when we know, if we can only know, then we can step out of that. And that's kind of like what you're saying. More succinctly, you said it in a spiritual way, and I was just, in terms of the reflective listening, that's how I would have reflected back. There was you might say a transpersonal or a spiritual or a universal conundrum that a person was dealing with beyond the mother-in-law, the boyfriend, and so on, is that when we're not clear about us, we can get pushed around by forces. We hate to make a decision because we take a risk, but the price of not taking the risk is we lose our life.
I mean, right now that makes me think too that, I mean, this for me is the first kind of unstructured time I've had. I've always been in school and done this and you do this and you do this, and now I'm like, whoa, now what do I do, you know?
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
That's an exciting time and a scary time, huh? Yeah. And just like with this situation, it was kind of scary because she wasn't giving you an advice, but it was kind of exciting because then you got to look inside.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just weird having an audience too, I guess.
Well, part of the audience too, the value of the audience is it makes us all very aware of the process. And that's what we want to be aware. Every one of us wants to have the Suzanne part who goes through the experience of seeing what good listening does for us and appreciates what it's like to want advice and not get it. Because then when we're in the Joyce role, we can remember what it's like to feel like the Suzanne and be kind and compassionate in our not giving advice and warm in our listening and not make it seem too remote. Do I feel like I'm a million miles away or not caring?
That was one thing. It's like I could feel her pain, and I really wanted to just reach out and touch her, but I wasn't sure if that would be real appropriate. I actually just wanted to hug her, say, "Let me cry, it's okay." You know?
Right. Well, we're not into therapy management here, so we're not dealing with those kinds of questions. And also then the Matt role that's observing all of this and is thinking. You know, and he's thinking at a spirit level, oh, she's being called into her own. She's being called, and her own higher self is calling to her in this situation. This is the beauty of the situation, and it's why, as the observer part speaks to the listening part, why you're not giving advice right now, because you would be defeating how Spirit is using this situation to bring her to consciousness. And you would cut off Spirit if you gave her advice. So rather than helping her feel better, you help her get better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's definitely just, it was new for me to sort of have that type of interaction. But it's useful.
Okay, so when you're in that role and you're listening to the other person, you'll remember what it felt like, you know, and you can see the value of it. Well, thank you all very, very much for doing this. A good listener is patient. I don't feel any pressure to try to have some insights or get somewhere. I feel like I can take all the time that I need to just explore what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling. You really appreciate someone who's relaxed while they're listening to you, who seems to have all the time in the world to simply listen and pay attention as you explore your own feelings. You really appreciate not being under any pressure to have insights or accomplish something. Perhaps by now you're getting an appreciation for the value of listening, that it's something more than just sitting there, and it offers the person who's talking something a little bit more than just hearing their words repeated back. I think in order to really master the skill of listening, you need to have the experience of being listened to. That's why I asked you earlier to think about people that you knew of who were a good listener, and to sort of remember in your mind what it was like to be in their presence and to talk with them, and what it was like to be listened to. Now, listening has a long history. It's perhaps the key ingredient in all forms of counseling and healing. It goes way back, say, within the Christian church, in the emphasis on confession, that getting something off your chest is good. So, for example, if you're being the listener, you want to be able to listen to a person that encourages them to get out with it, get it out, get it off their chest, get it out, say it. Catharsis. Research has shown now that people who are able to express their feelings about hurts and wounds that they've received are much more likely to get over those wounds, to have a healthier time of it afterwards, than people who keep it in or who are not able to get it out and to express it. You see, part of our work in listening is governed by some understanding of the healing process. We've already understood that the illnesses or disease comes about when we reject some aspect of our experience, perhaps because it's overwhelming, because it hurts so much. And a part of us doesn't really get the full light of day, doesn't get the full benefit of breath, of spirit. And that it causes an imbalance. And through accepting that's in the listening, the person is able to bring those parts up and out. Now in psychoanalysis, which is considered the origin of the talking cure with Freud, he was concerned with catharsis. He believed that incidents from the past, wounds and hurts, led to the person's disease. They might have been forgotten about or repressed, but their effects were still there with the person. So through a process of first hypnosis, to help a person so relax that they could bring out these memories. This is a form of catharsis, bringing it out. Then he shifted to free association. Just say whatever comes to your mind. And as you start speaking randomly, gradually nature will have its way and these memories and thoughts will begin to emerge. Now, a major step in the development of counseling theory came with Carl Rogers. He's somebody who began part of the human potential movement, or humanistic psychology. He de-emphasized the importance of the unconscious in favor of really just being with the person. He was the person who, in fact, invented reflective listening as a part of what he called client-centered counseling. By client-centered, he meant being really focused on the client's presence in the here and now, listening to the client. And by being so present as to be able to feed back to the client, here's what I hear you saying, offering the client the full acceptance that the client wasn't able to offer themselves. They were able to achieve a healing rapport in which the person, the client, would gradually come to know themselves as they accepted themselves, as they knew themselves more and accepted themselves more, and this would come out, the evolution of the self. Now, Carl Rogers was very important then in establishing part of the human potential movement because he believed that the person had the ability for self-healing if only the correct environment was provided. Now, listening played a role also in the development of psychoanalysis in its current form, which has to do with the restoration of the self. This is often attributed to Heinz Kohut, who believed that listening or empathy was much more important than interpretation. Freudians had gotten themselves into a place where, as the patient would free associate, the analyst's job was to interpret what came out of the free associations, to point to the operation of the unconscious and unconscious memories lurking behind the free associations. Heinz Kohut's revolution was to suggest that rather than interpret the client's free associations, it might be more healing to be with the person, to empathize with the person, to step inside their shoes and to help that person realize that here was someone else who could actually experience what it was like to be them. And by offering them this sense of self-experience, here's how I'm experiencing you, here's what it seems to be like you, the client would be able to come to have this experience too. So that the analyst or the counselor or the healer, by providing empathy for the client, role models what it might be like for the client to have empathy for themselves. Now, this is very important because, as you remember, part of our whole philosophy of healing based on the homeopathic model is that the disease, the problem, comes for a purpose. And the purpose is to return the person to wholeness. It's like the return of the repressed, the return of the soul into living incarnation in the body, in the person. And so by helping the person empathize with themselves, they come to be aware of and thus incarnate into awareness their real self, their total self. So whether you think of it from the point of view of the church and traditional religious counseling, as in the confessional, whether you think of it in terms of psychoanalysis, either the classic form of psychoanalysis or the newer form, or whether or not you think of it in terms of the humanistic psychology or even transpersonal psychology, all of these different approaches to counseling has as its core empathy. Empathy as a way of knowing, the I and thou relationship. So as you're learning the skill of listening, experience the nuances of it. It's more than simply repeating back the person's words, but it's being there with them, using reflective listening as a way of manifesting that type of consciousness. And notice when you're in the other side of it and you're being listened to, what it feels like to have a person be there with you, mirroring you and helping you come into an awareness of what it is you're actually experiencing of yourself at that moment. Now, what I like to do is take you back into Atlantic University classroom in which I'm talking a little bit about the relationship between the counselor and the client through this role of listening, to give you a little bit more background information, more of a perspective on the listening process and its significance for healing. And then we'll go and look at some of people talking about what it's like to be listened to, and we'll see a little bit more about the process of learning this skill. Okay, let's go into the classroom now and watch as I share a little bit more about client-counselor interaction through the process of listening.
Okay, so what we're learning here is a transpersonal perspective on counseling, which means that we're concerned not with just getting the job done of solving a person's problem, but we're also having a broader perspective as to the purpose of why a person would have a problem in the first place, and how through our interacting with them that purpose might be realized. In other words, from a spiritual perspective, we understand that everything has a purpose and that we're all drawing closer toward God realization, and that we're here to help each other do this. Now, the way I look at counseling is it's a special circumstance of two people interacting for hopefully the chance to have some God realization come between them. Now, what we talked about is, say, if this is the two people that we understand from earlier lectures that the creation is basically whole of one piece, and in stories of creation there became the divide, the yin and the yang, the plus and the minus, and so on. This is in all of the creation myths. And that the yes and no, the dark and light. And one of the things that happens that a person becomes an individual by saying no, like in the terrible twos, and also a person comes to separate from themselves because their parents are going to automatically find aspects of themselves that they don't like, and they're going to punish certain aspects of the kid. So there's going to be an okay you and a not okay you, a conscious you and an unconscious you. Part of what the creation of consciousness is certain things come into your awareness and other things go out of your awareness. As a result, there's a natural split. Now, this is common in all creation mythologies. Now, where this comes up in psychology, we have Freud in saying that the seed of neurosis is repressing certain feelings and emotions, then they come up and get you. Carl Rogers talking about parts of ourselves that we don't accept. We have conditional self-worth. It's based on certain conditions. Okay, now if God realization or health requires us being whole, us being the unique total person that we are, then that means that these parts that have been rejected, these parts that have been repressed, have to come back up into consciousness, and we have to find a way to bring them back into our family of who we are. We have to re-embrace them. Now, how does this come about if we don't even know they exist? How are we going to do that, especially since we kicked them out? Well, what happens is, as they say, shit happens. We start having problems. We trip over things. We get into all kinds of situations. This is because those unconscious parts of ourselves are drawing our attention to them via these problems in life. So someone comes to see you, they are talking about some problem. They feel depressed, they don't get along with their wife, they wish they could get a better job, but they're afraid to leave. Whatever is the situation that's causing them unhappiness. And we could say, let's go fix this, and we go and fix it by giving them a skill or what have you to get out of that situation. We take away their problem. We've now taken away the message, the letter, the channel through which some unowned part of themselves was trying to come back and be re-owned. So from a transpersonal point of view, what we're hoping to do is that we can, by being with the person, they can come to see the reason why this problem is coming, the purpose, and reclaim some part of themselves and move a step towards wholeness. Okay, so that's all review. Now, so this is, say, the person, and we'll say this is the counselor because they're wearing the counselor's hat and they've got their little Indian feather on so that they won't mistake who they are. So this person is
at many levels. Out of their mouth, they're saying things. Their vibes are giving off energy along different, dimensions. And they are, in effect, affecting you. You're open to them. You are receptive. You're listening. You're paying attention. They're going to affect you. Now, we talked about what are the criteria, the conditions, the schooling for a healer. Well, the healer supposedly has medicine. Where does this medicine come from? It comes from the fact that you've had problems, you've faced things, you've gone through changes, you've had your crises, you've learned the secrets or some secrets of transformation. So you know what it's like to, say, for example, feel angry and fight within yourself about, shall I express it? Shall I repress it? Until you realize you want it to impress you and understand what your anger is trying to tell you. Relax, stand up for yourself, own whatever it is that's the violation that you need to stand up and say, hey, I claim this or whatever. So that you have different, whereas when they get into a certain situation, a thing comes along, the energy gets stuck in them. The situation's stuck. They don't know exactly what to do with it because their tools for handling it, for rolling it over, a lot of that is repressed. It's not available to them. From you, a situation comes in, it hits your knowledge base of transformation, you turn it around, you draw upon self-esteem, you draw upon self-acceptance, etc. You can turn a situation around and walk on through it. So that means then that when they're talking to you, what have you, their energy is coming at you. You are, in effect, very naturally taking that energy, transforming it, and giving it back to them in a new way. Or they are generating some bad energy, another way of looking at it, some disjointed, disharmonious energy. You sit with that energy as it works in you, and you harmonize it. They watch you, they pick up and they start resonating with you, resonating with them, and they start resonating with them, and they start learning how to harmonize that energy. Now, say in a simple situation of listening, what goes on? This person says something like, I'm really angry at my wife, but I couldn't tell her that. That wouldn't be right. So you can feel their inhibitions. They're not allowing themselves to consider the possibility of disclosing their feelings. You reflect back. That wouldn't be right? Now, just by your saying that, you're just reflecting that back. You're giving them a chance to say, yeah, of course, that wouldn't be right, because if you say you're angry, that's hurtful, and so on. And say, oh, is it you'd be hurting her if you told her that you were angry with her. By reflecting this, you're staying calm. This person's really upset over this prospect of that they're angry. It's dangerous now that they're angry. It's potential calamity that they're going to tell their wife. And however, you're not acting like, you're saying, oh, you're angry. Oh, you might tell your wife. Oh, my God, what are we going to do? Oh, well, maybe you should write her a letter or something. Like you're as upset and worried about it as they are. So your suggestion to them is trying to then counter this fear that you and they both have, to deal with this dangerous situation. But on the other hand, you're saying, oh, so you're angry at your wife? You're afraid to tell her, huh? You're afraid it would hurt her, huh? Now, what are you doing by that calm acceptance and reflecting? You're telling this person, not in so many words, but your energy is saying, what's so frightening to them is not frightening to you. What seems like such a bad thing, you seem to be rather acceptant of it. This starts affecting their energy, and through this process of exchange, through reflective listening, they can calm down and now examine something and be mindful of something that they would have when they first came in totally just evade, just not even consider it. You didn't have to tell them, you didn't have to give them any directions. You're not giving them any advice on how to deal with the situation, but your whole being is saying, hey, we can relax. This is not dangerous. This is not disgusting. You're not a horrible person. I'm not barfing in your presence. I'm not calling 911. I'm not freaked out. And that allows them to examine it. Now, there's a simple kind of a situation that I'm sure you could relate to. Now, there are, of course, boundaries. There are boundaries or edges, let's say, to your own self-acceptance. There are boundaries or edges to where you have not generated medicine because things that you haven't dealt with, that you haven't worked with, and so on. So your medicine is to some extent limited by what of yourself you've been able to reclaim, reaccept, bring back into yourself. Because, say, for example, let's say that you were married to somebody who was violent and hit you. And you never have totally worked that through to recognize that not only was it not okay, and it wasn't your fault, but maybe you had some role in it, but it's not your fault. And working through all the complexities of all of that, so that they say, well, I'm really angry at my wife, and I don't want to tell her, you know, I could get mad and I could hit her. You say, well, you better not hit her. Let's see, what else? You know, and so you have a knee-jerk reaction. You didn't even think of it. It wasn't mindful on your part. It wasn't a carefully thought out, or you were being authentic, but it wasn't coming from your medicine part. It wasn't coming from that part of you of unconditional love and wholeness. It was a knee-jerk reaction that you had because you still have some unworked things of your own. And so you reacted to it. We all do. We can't help it. That's why they had developed, you might say, disciplines for counselors, where one discipline is try to stay centered, be aware of how you're feeling in the session, and focus on the client's presentation, and as they talk, reflect back what you're hearing. So then all of a sudden they say, well, I couldn't get angry at my wife. I couldn't tell her how I feel. I might get so mad I'd hit her. And you have a inside, but you're aware of that, but you say, you would get so mad that you would hit her? And there you're aware all of a sudden that they've touched on something that's scary for you, but at the same time you're trying to allow them to have their own space to explore. Well, that takes a lot of mindfulness to be able to do that. And I think that you've already experienced from your practicing and listening that you're all pretty reactive. You know, when the person, your partner, starts talking to you, you've got all of these pulls on you to say things, give advice, and so on. It's very hard to stay there in that meditative kind of way and reflect back. Now that I've shared with you some more of my perspective on how listening plays itself out in the relationship between the client and the counselor, let's watch as some students describe what their experiences have been like exploring listening from both sides of the couch, both as the active listener and the person who's receiving listening. We'll see that they're forming some insights about the importance of listening and the nuances of the experience. Let's see what they have to say.
Being the listener, the person to whom the other person's talking to, and my partner was speaking to me, the sense of not being able to respond to each thing, not nodding the head or or you know what have you, but listening without interrupting or without interjection of my thoughts, opinions, which is something I do a lot. And it's also been a new training for me to try to shut up and listen and truly listen. The however, shutting up and closing my mouth and not responding rose up within me a sense of anxiety, and that was my own experience, not necessarily my partner's experience, but my own sense of feeling like I might not be really being helpful, that they might perceive me as not really responding. Or, you know, we have a tendency to go and you know, we have a tendency to talk to each other and and say things back and forth so that they at least know you're still there.
Right, right.
And in this reflective listening, it was practicing perhaps not even doing that much. I've worked both on the phone and in person with this work. And then the next thing I discovered, which became truly fascinating to me, was that as I was truly listening and stepping out of my own program or agenda about helping the other person, but continuing to reflect on what that person was saying, that I would have responses that I wanted to respond to something that she said, and then the next thing you know, she'd be wandering off onto something else. And I discovered that it was important for me to follow her lead and to go where she went and reflect on that, because that she was following her feelings, and that's where her feelings were going. So it was important to follow that. But as we followed that, I felt her experiencing and discovering and discerning things within herself without my saying what they were. I perhaps could see them in this. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
I could see them in the situation, but I could also feel her discovering her own answers.
Right, right.
Something in the same way as when we're doing the self-reflective. But it was exciting to watch. To do it takes a couple of things that are still learning steps for me. One is, as I mentioned a few moments ago, to shut up and not speak. And the other is to just be with that person wherever they go, whatever they're up for, whatever's happening with them. So that's been very rich for me.
What sort of opened up for myself, I think a surprise is that, you know, to actually grasp this possibility that we really do have this wisdom inside us, you know, so that in this coming back to oneself or feeding back to a person, that you're really helping them. And I did feel that expansion both in myself. I think it happened both ways, you know, of both of all of us in a way, but going deeper and to me is that just in staying more within that process of how far it can kind of go.
So you're taking it like accepting in good-naturedly the restrictions, like you might accept the restrictions of a meditation process.
Not totally, but right.
And then being surprised that in that you found that more came out of it than you would have expected. And that even though all you're doing is feeding back or reflecting, you're discovering the other person has this amazing ability to somehow use that mirroring themselves. They know how to somehow use it to help themselves.
Right. I mean, I felt that the person that I was counseling with, I just couldn't believe where he went in the 3 weeks. I mean, it was just amazing to me. And the one thing that I did there was that I had a strong empathy experience in myself, and I was wondering, should I share this, should I not, should I what? But it just felt right. So I just, you know, and I said that to him, and I just did it, and I feel that that was also helpful. So that I didn't feel totally rigidly constrained, you know, and I understand that this is an experiment as well. And then when I was being counseled, I was surprised too that it could go so far inside myself, you know.
Just by giving a mirror like that.
Going back and exploring more, and you know, I was surprised too myself. I was surprised that the other person went so far, and I was surprised when it was done to me that I went so far.
Yeah, in both cases, it surprised you, and it's because of a say negative expectation, or it surpassed your expectation. Surpassed.
Right.
Did you have any insights as to what is it about people that they can use mirroring so effectively?
Well, I think that's what I was realizing, is that we talk, we especially in if we're in different spiritual schools or in the KC ideology, it's one thing to talk about, the divine or the imprint within us, and I felt that this was more of a discovery that is really true.
Now, as you practice reflective listening, you'll go through some predictable stages of learning. The first stage is very naturally simply focusing on the steps, focusing on the technique. That is, your concern will be primarily on listening to what the client has to say and thinking about what you're going to say back, thinking about how you're going to repeat the words back. It'll be very mechanical at first. You'll feel very unnatural about it. You'll feel like you're not really being yourself. It takes a while for you to get past the mechanical stage where you can start to relax. And as you do so, you'll find that you're reflecting back to the client not just their words, but also some of the feeling. Some of the feeling that's implicit in what they're saying, even though they're not using feeling words to express themselves. And at the second step, you'll actually be helping the client to become aware of feelings that are in their statements, but that they're not stating directly. That's a very important stage in your development. And then finally, you'll get past the technique and you'll get into the spirit of it. And the spirit of it is simply to be with the client. I'm here with you. I'm experiencing you as you experience yourself. And as you get into the spirit of it, you'll find that you'll become more and more yourself. The more you become yourself, the more you practice reflective listening in a way that's uniquely your own. Now we're going to see an example of that here, where a student practices reflective listening with another student. And then I step in and go through the same process with the student, and then we discuss the differences. One of the main things that comes out of this is the students find that I'm a lot wilder and looser in my listening than what they thought was allowed. I'm doing the same process, but I'm just being myself. And by being myself, I give the client something that's missing in simply the mechanical reflecting back of the words and even the feelings of what the client is saying. So let's watch now. This is a very interesting learning demonstration as a student and a client student and myself explore varieties in listening.
Okay, what's been happening, what I came up against today and decided to really take a look at was that I had gone to the store. I'd heard on the radio this ad for a thing called earplanes. And these earplanes are things that you put in your ears so you don't get that ear problem going up and down an airplane when you're coming, landing and taking off. And I thought, what the heck, So I went in a place in the pharmacy and bought some, brought them home, took them out of the package and put them in a Ziploc bag. And I put them in my purse, so I'd have them really handy. Then in the meantime, I went forward and I was packing and stuff, and I bought a different purse, so I shifted everything to the new purse. And then I was packing the other packages and putting them all together. And I handled that sack of earplanes about half a dozen times, different, putting them in and making sure I knew right where they were, being very, very conscious of where they were. And then I was rearranging my purse again this afternoon, and I can't find them. They're gone.
So when you were switching purses, you may have left it in the other purse?
I looked in the other purse. I looked everywhere. And it's like somebody came and played a joke on me, It's like, because this happened to me a few weeks ago. I had a client call me and ask to be notified when I decided to do my next class. And she gave me her name and address and her phone number, and I had it on my desk and waited until I had finished getting the date. I finally made a decision on the date, and then I made some flyers, and I was ready to mail out the flyers. The note's gone. Had handled that note a half a dozen times, and it's like it disappeared. It completely disappeared. And I even went through all of my trash. I had not thrown out any trash. I went everywhere, and it's like what this is about is it's like I do that to me, and it frightens me. Because what happens is that I feel like I'm losing it.
So you're feeling scared that you're not keeping up with these things, or you're misplacing these things, and it's not just one time, but it's more than once.
Yes.
And it's scaring
happens,
you.
And it scares me because it's like if I don't stay very, very conscious and very alert, I may lose a bag or forget the car, or I don't know what, it's like, what's wrong with my brain? And it makes me very uneasy. It makes, I even noticed it when I leave the house. I turn on the light if I'm going to be after dark coming home. I always, it's really wild, and it feels almost like a phobia, but as I go out the door, I look to see that I have my house key about 4 or 5 times. And it's like, this sounds like people that have phobias. You've heard those described, I'm sure. And it's like, what is this? And my feeling about it is like, what's wrong with me? And it's like I can't relax, and like, too bad.
What I'm hearing you say is that you're being overly cautious about what you're doing so that you don't forget things, such as the house key. You check 4 or 5 times.
And it takes a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of paying attention. And there's a part of me that doesn't want to be thought of as dingy because I lock myself out of the house. So I have extra keys in my purse and another key in the car. And it's like, it's over. I'm over. It's ridiculous. And there's something that feels to me, though, that's the surface of it. The feeling is that there's a deeper undermining of myself going on here, and I don't know what that is.
So you think that this is just the tip of the iceberg?
Of some kind of an iceberg.
And it's scary for you?
It's unnerving, and it makes me feel anxious.
So what you're saying is that these things that may be leading to something deeper inside of you, and it's starting to worry you that people are going to look at you differently?
Maybe it makes me get upset because I might forget something important. Or forget, people, for instance, people will say, well, call me, and I'll wake up a week later and realize I haven't even talked to him. And it's like, what, is it my brain? Is it chemical? Is it just laziness? Or it's like I have to write everything down. I mean, this is years. This isn't just recent. I had a boss at the bank years ago used to say, all those notes, drive him nuts, because I had notes about everything on my desk, but I got the stuff done.
So you need constant reminders, but you do get everything finished. Reminders to yourself.
If I write it down, it gets done. If I try to remember it, it rarely gets done. And I think it's a function of memory. Some people have thought it's a function of laziness or not making an effort. But I make efforts. Oh man!
I hear that. I hear you making a lot of efforts to remember things, a lot of efforts to be on time, to remember other people and be conscientious about other people and what they're doing and what they're going through.
But it's left me feeling like, I don't know if I have a big problem or if I have just a little problem that's bugging me. And it concerns me because it makes me anxious. And when I get anxious, I am not relaxed. And I want to be relaxed. I want to just sort of like, okay, cool, out the door, let's go to the airport.
And trying to remember everything and write everything down and be on time and not losing things, that makes you anxious and on edge too.
And it's like, okay, I just had a picture as you're talking back to me, and that is, I picture like, okay, I'm going to the airport. I'll load everything into the car, the person who's taking me, and then when I get to the airport, I need to be I'll be over careful to be sure I take everything out of the car. Be sure I didn't leave a jacket or one of the bags, or and I don't know, maybe that's normal, but it certainly doesn't feel normal to me.
It seems, I hear that bothering you.
Mm-hmm.
That even though it may not be normal for some people, it may be normal for you.
Yeah, it could be. I kind of like that thought.
I'm just really curious. We had this exchange. You were talking about your concern about losing things and what it meant for your mental health, and April's been listening to you. What, Bonnie, as you were listening to the conversation, what is it that you've got the feeling that was concerning Sharon? What would you say was the emotional essence of where Sharon was going or what she was talking about?
Well, I think she appeared to me to be anxious, to be fearful. What if this is happening to me? What if I'm losing it? And a real kind of anxiety and fear over that, and what to do about it and how to handle it, and not knowing for sure. I think there was that essence of, trying to, you had the feeling, but then you weren't sure, and kind of back and forth. So there was that feeling too.
So she didn't know exactly what it meant for her.
Right. Right.
That was the thing that I was feeling from you, was that you were concerned somehow that this pattern of losing things somehow said something about you, that you were losing it. In some
Whatever
way,
it is, yes.
whatever it is, like you were losing your mind, you were losing control, and you'd been there before.
Yes.
And you didn't know exactly how to.
And it's like I'm just now paying attention to it, and the reflective listening helped me to really begin to focus down on it and say, now, do I have a problem or don't I?
So that was the thing I wanted to ask you next, is that you were going through the reflective listening. What kind of new awareness about this situation was coming up for you?
Well, I have to tell you that her last statement was fun, because it was like, well, heck, maybe this is just normal for me. And if people will take me the way I am, and I forgot to call you, well, too bad. It's the way it is. But the point is for me to get okay with that. You see, because I have this over sense of obligation or responsibility to others.
Right.
And if I have said I will do something, for instance, and I forget to do it, or said I would even make a phone call, or that I care about you, and totally forget. And somehow that has been translated to me by other close persons, spouses, etc., as non-caring.
Kind of like the Freudian hypothesis that's motivated forgetting. You're forgetting because you don't care.
Because I don't care. Or because I don't want to, or because I'd really rather not, and I'm not willing to be honest enough to say so, or whatever.
And you're feeling that you're forgetting because of overload. You have too much going on.
And that's probably another good point. There's a lot going on. If I don't keep it all on paper, I'll lose it for sure. There's a lot going on. Very busy.
Right. Well, these times must really test you then, because there's more than you can handle, and you're making a lot of efforts with paper or what have you to try to keep it all together. People will interpret your forgetfulness as in some negative way. And at the same time, you do maybe feel that you have too many balls up in the air, and yet you can't allow any of them to fall down. And it's kind of a hell, it sounds like, to be in.
Well, it is, and that's a large part of the reason that I've realized that I kept putting off doing more. Because when working for yourself, when you have more than one ball in the air, there's a lot to remember. And to pay attention to, and to care about, and and it's like, it's almost like I'd rather just opt out and say, forget it. give me one thing at a time, I'm fine. Don't give me
It's interesting you
five.
say forget it. I'll just sort of opt out and forget it. It's like forgetting it is a strategy, almost saying, you meaning in a larger sense, I suppose.
I don't doubt, however,
backing out.
that statement is like a subliminal part of me that says I really would rather forget it. I don't. I'm not willing to not take responsibility for the forgetting. But at the same time, I've been doing this all my life. I mean, it's like I discussed the gentleman in the bank, one of my bosses, and I had, these pieces of paper, and they're stuffed all through my desk, and it drove him nuts, and he made comment on it. And yet I was able to get the work done, but in the loan officer's position, you have, 40 loans in process at one time, and you have major detail about each one, and it's like, that was my way of keeping track.
Sure. Now they have project managing software, because that's what everybody faces, that kind of thing.
That's what I don't know. Is this like other people have this kind of problem too, or am I the only one? It's like at dinner tonight, we met for dinner before class, and the waiter took our orders with he didn't write them down. Not only that, he talked through them. And it's like, how did he remember all that?
He probably remembers it long enough to get over to the cook and
well, but the point
say
is that I guess some people have better memories.
Well, possibly. I don't know if you're concerned about your memory, deciding what's normal, or at the same time it sounds like that you're also noticing that this is something characteristic about you, that you've been in this situation many, many, many times, and as if you're being forced to contend with something that has some meaning for you. Whether it's, you say at some point it's overwork, or having too much going on, or facing up to expectations of other people. I'm not quite sure what is like you might say, the mythical or deeper level that this has for you, but you talk about it as if it's more than just being overloaded or having too much.
I think so, because I've done it even when I wasn't overloaded. So I don't think that's an excuse for it.
When you say an excuse for it, it sounds like you're feeling, ashamed or guilty about it somehow, that you failed, or
it's partly a feeling of being afraid I'll fail someone else.
So this is really a social situation that you're in.
It's
not just a matter of losing your
things,
keys, but it's losing a trust with somebody, or losing a special relationship with somebody, or something like that. Huh?
Well, yeah, trust.
Promises to
like
keep.
This woman, I mean, I walked all around my house going, please call me, please call me, please call me, sending a mental message, and my golly, she called me. But I could hear in her voice that she was slightly put out, and her first words were, "You forgot me." And I reassured her that I didn't, but I don't know if she was convinced. But then I let her down, and I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
But that was a function of losing that piece of paper, which is like, what's this? What's going on with me?
Reminds me of me. I mean, the class comes tonight, and I haven't the foggiest. It's a big surprise when the knock, and I have it written down, but I haven't bothered to look at it, and say, well, just come on in and I'll adapt, but I'm having to play catch up.
Well, I worked with this a little before we came here with the tape I gave you today, and I did find a couple of insights. One was that I remembered, while I was doing this, I remember a statement from my father that I heard many times, and that was, you couldn't find it if it was right in front of you.
So there's some shame at your
and
inadequacy.
I realized
here.
There was another aspect to it that came, and it's the power of a thought, the power of a statement, how I could take that statement and suck it right into my consciousness and live with it.
Right.
And it's like part of my thinking was, maybe it's that simple. You see? Maybe it's not really I think I have a very good memory. I really don't think it's about my memory. I think it's about, there's a subjective thought that undermines me. Now that's my own psychological training stuff that I look at things like that. But it's a feeling that maybe it's that simple, that it would be perhaps getting hypnotized and have somebody go in and slash that thought out of me, or using affirmations to reassure myself that thought is all that's doing this, you know, that there isn't something inherently wrong with me.
Maybe that's why you've used the word phobia, because it's like you have this underlying sense that maybe this panic that you experience is based on a false premise, that there really is nothing to be afraid of, but that you've come to be afraid of it. It's a sign of you losing your mind. It's you're on the verge of losing all your friends. You're losing all credibility. And we know what Sharon's like. Sharon couldn't find it if it were in front of her face. Sharon can hardly keep it together. She'd forget her name if it wasn't pinned on her nose. You know,
Yes,
so
that's how it
you
feels.
kind of carrying this around, and
as I said, it's just to use it for now. It feels like it's blown all out of proportion.
Right,
But it's important to me.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like something that matters. And I
Sure,
don't know
sure.
quite which way to go. I've used affirmations for many years. I've said I have everything I need. You know, whatever.
Right, right. You know, it matters because it's touching on something that you value, of either being accountable or being credible or being competent, or something having to do with your inherent soundness as a person. Your wiring isn't faulty, so you don't have to doubt yourself, I guess. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, April, I'm just curious, you know, as I've been talking to Sharon a little bit about this, you know, and she's sort of going over the same territory, and I've been listening to her and so on. What would you say, if you noticed, as me trying to practice the listening skills as she's talking, and you reflect back on when you were trying to listen to her, what comes to your mind?
I noticed how, like, it was going a little bit farther. When you were talking, some of the words that you used and how you rephrased what she was saying took things a little bit farther.
And it was how was I doing that?
I just sensed the real sense of, like you were saying earlier, authenticity with her, and it just seemed to come, it flowed freer with you than I think it did with me.
How was I feeling, you think, relative to how you were feeling when we were listening to her?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think I was more concerned with what I was going to say to her than what she was going to say to me.
So some of this, I guess, is in learning the skill and being so focused on the skill per se that the focus isn't on the person. I could sense myself being freer. I was willing to color outside the lines. And I did do one thing that was beyond the reflective listening purely, and it's something we'll be talking about in our next exercise, was I shared a little bit about something that I was feeling that was similar. I said, if I'm hearing how you're feeling, then what I experienced this time is similar to that. So it's reflecting, but it wasn't reflecting in the form of saying, what I hear you saying is, but it was of the form, if I'm hearing you correctly, then this thing that I've experienced is like that. So that was a self-disclosure that's also reflective and tuned in, maintaining contact. And we were kidding around a little bit more too, you know, and stuff.
Which is fun.
Yeah, to get it. What did you notice or think about, you know, and I was mixing it up with Sharon and reflecting back on April's listening to Sharon. What would you have to say?
Well, I think the main difference that I noticed was that April tried to very closely use the verbiage that Sharon used, and you were just kind of, you know, there was no special word that you had to say, but it was just pretty much that you were kind of allowing yourself to actually experience what she was experiencing and how that might be, and and much more relaxed with it and kind of at home with it.
I think a lot of it is that, just being at home with it, being relaxed. But the other thing is, really is the focus is on the authentic connection. I'm really curious, you know, about what's this like to be sharing, you know, kind of stuff. And listening to, trying to understand, I guess, the things that she's saying, putting together, I think, like the linking up phobia, which she had said earlier. I don't even think it was with me. I think it was with you. But somehow the word popped out, the way she was talking, and I was feeling a match, phobia. False fear, where you're overly afraid of something, as if she was diagnosing herself. And maybe playing back the feelings in a more intense way or something to just try to be in there.
To mix me up more.
Well, just trying to explore.
Not confuse me. I don't want to use the word mix it, but to put the spoon in here and really stir it around a little further, you know, is how that felt.
Right.
And I also felt, if that's okay for me to say, okay, my sense of understanding what I had said earlier was that it felt that the reflective listening that we've been practicing was beginning to feel limited and one-sided and even boring or even difficult.
Right.
But what I suddenly realized is that it is a skill. You obviously are extremely experienced at it, so that this is very helpful to see you do it. But to feel the realization of how you did that, and I hope this video gets into our hands so I can recheck this, what you said and how you did it, because I could see how this expanded what took place. You see, it helped me to look further. It was still leaving the responsibility on me to dig into my own awareness for what I could get out of it.
Right.
You weren't helping me a whole lot, but that wasn't the point of it. You know, it wasn't you telling me what to do.
Yeah.
You know, or giving me the answers.
No, I wasn't telling you what to do, but I certainly was maintaining a high level of interest in your situation. If you kind of got bored with your question, I still wasn't bored with it, you know, and so to be there, and just the demeanor, I mean, just, you know, really bearing down, as it were. And of course, I did allow myself to go outside the lines. You know, not that it was all that critical to do. I mean, it didn't produce anything. It wasn't a technique when I talked about, you know, me not knowing about the appointment tonight. That wasn't some technique that all of a sudden you had this major breakthrough. It was just part of a sharing and a camaraderie of relating, you know, to you.
And that was very reassuring as well. Because it made me feel less isolated. It made me feel more like maybe I'm not the only person who has to make notes about everything.
Well, I think that one of the things that would be coming up here, would be, I suppose, is saying, well, I notice, you know, that I get overwhelmed. I've got too much going on. And I notice for me that I'm not questioning my mental capacities, except I'm questioning my good judgment to take on so much stuff. And when will I be found out, and when will it all collapse and stuff, and I'll be sent to jail because or whatever. But I'm not thinking it's because I'm mentally deficient, whereas you were something we were trying to diagnose. You were feeling something of some kind of a label or a worry or a paranoia or something that you didn't have it all together. And when I mentioned project management software or contact software, that's obviously because
see, that was another thought I didn't know
salespeople, they got to keep track of all this stuff, and it's very hard. I use it for all my Atlantic University students. So you might say there was some kind of a normative statement or something like that. But if I was going to stick to strictly from reflective listening to self-disclosure that reflects back on what I'm hearing, then I would say that what I would be saying is, well, I have a similar experience of feeling of being behind, and yet I don't have this feeling of I'm losing it. So I'm wondering what's going on here. And somewhere in there, I think there was something helpful for you in terms of reshaping your...
Just talking about it.
Reshaping your picture.
Gets it out.
Yeah.
It's like it's been sitting here like this monster for so many years, and it's like just saying it sort of dissipates its energy.
Right. Okay. Well, very good. So I think some of the things we've learned here is we can see the technique. We can see how it's easy to get so focused on the technique that the spirit's not there. And what it's like when the spirit is there, and how you can go outside the lines in terms of strictly the technique, but that we can still relate some of this to the method of reflective listening. But I would say above all, the whole thing boils down to sincerely wanting to make that connection, sincerely wanting to understand, maybe wanting to understand a little bit more than you do, and in some ways using the presence of your personality to keep the person interested. I would say one thing in listening to April was that there was so little emotion in April's listening that if I were the client, I would think she didn't care. She really wasn't interested that much.
Some passion in the counselor is appropriate.
I would say, yes, sure. To let that person hear in your feeling, not just using the feeling words, but hear in the feeling.
Really care what
well,
the
not
other
just that you
person's
care,
saying.
but the feelings that you reflected. Like, gosh, you're running around and you're losing everything. My golly, you think you're losing your mind. I'm giving you back some of your emotion. You see, I'm letting you experience how I'm experiencing your emotion. It's more than just trying to prove to you that I'm a goody-goody caring type person. It's a matter also of letting you feel your feelings being reflected back, not just the words about it.
I hadn't ever thought of that.
That's really the being with. I mean,
Yes,
it is not, really not
Authenticity.
until you're truly with the person,
Yeah.
I can see that you're going to catch that. It's almost like it's Sharon's experience, but because I'm with her, it's also my experience.
Yes.
And that, you can just have more, you respond to it differently than like with April and the rest of us when